Zenybody in here for May 3rd, 2018, episode 12, interview with Michael Williams, a theater director. We're some guys who hung out together for a few years, then decided to start a podcast. We don't adhere to any format. We do interviews, social commentary, any subject we think can make a show designed to make you think and laugh. You can email Zenybody in here at zenybodyinhere@gmail.com. Facebook page at Zenybody in Here Podcast. Our webpage is zenybodyinhere.com. To send a voicemail to us or text us, the number is 256-401-7140. That's 256-401-7140. To support anybody in here, you can go to the patreon.com and look us up. That's Zenybody in Here. In this interview, we interview Michael Williams, who's a theater director at a local college where we do our podcast. Also, some discussions we cover at Poison Oak, and also we talk about plays and movies, including a play called Mr. Burns. Here's our host, Adam Baker, Kevin Treadler, and Tim Altork. Bill's off this week for duties we'll talk about in the show, and our special guest is Michael Williams.
Anna Yalom, she now goes by Hedvig, I believe. But we were on tour, and we were using tents for the tour for the most part. And we got to a stop, and she went into the woods to use the bathroom, and what she didn't realize is she squatted into a bunch of poison oak.
Oh, yeah.
And I was the performer on the tour, but I was also the medic on the tour. And I was chosen to be the medic on the tour because it was unanimously voted that I probably had spent more time with doctors than anybody else in the room. And so probably, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes after she used the bathroom, it just got medieval. And so we did have soap and everything for it, but she couldn't put back on the clothes she had been wearing because, well, they had the oil from the poison oak. And, you know, when you squat down in poison oak and it gets all between the legs and everything, it's there. It's there. And
like swimwear.
Yeah, it just goes pretty bad for you. And so, when I look at your under the eye, my first thought is, well, you're doing a lot better than she was.
Well, wait till you see the rest of my body.
Oh, man.
Well, and until you can put it into you, you don't really have much on her, as I said.
Yeah. I'm happy about that.
Oh, man.
Okay.
So, gentlemen, I have made it after a 2-week delay.
All right.
And so what is the agenda now that you know that I have treated people for poison oak in places that, you know?
All right.
Well, I was hoping you could tell me a little bit about Kevin Costner's movie, The Postman.
If I recall correctly, just because you find a postal uniform, it does not make you an actual postman.
Right.
And if we were to go by Mr. Costner's logic in that movie, if I find a police uniform, I should be able to put someone in handcuffs, right?
Yeah.
And so, therefore, I really don't dig Kevin
Just
Costner's
realized your
The
mic
Postman.
was off. We're cool now.
Okay. Well, if you got a post-apocalyptic scenario, does it count then?
We actually went and saw a post-apocalyptic show Thursday night. I took the students. During your year, we went to go see the Laramie Project, if I'm correct.
Yeah, in Georgia.
Yeah, in Georgia. Well, I took them to see Mr. Burns, a post-electric play. And I was actually moved by it. I did not think it was the greatest play, but I was moved by the ambition of it. And it starts off in a post-apocalyptic world where we have been without electric power for about 6 months. And without electric power, nuclear plants all over the country are having meltdowns. And so people are scattering everywhere trying to get away. And so you have these people sitting around a campfire and they're telling stories to each other. And the stories that they're telling are episodes of The Simpsons. Yeah, it was actually a brilliant play. And so they're reliving, telling the stories of these episodes they used to watch, of an episode where Sideshow Bob had, basically had Bart one-on-one. Then the second part of the play, you move ahead 7 years, and we've gone from sitting around the campfires telling stories to now we are actually getting up and performing episodes of The Simpsons.
This is a play.
This is a play,
Okay.
and they're doing
Can I
scene.
jump and see where this is gonna go? Like, are
Well-
they gonna become the Simpsons?
Well, it's even more ambitious than that, and that's why I love the ambition of this, because as they move 7 years later, there's no power, there's no way to get a hold of the old scripts or anything, and so people are traveling around buying lines from people who remember lines from different episodes and putting together entire episodes and putting together commercials for in between episodes and acting it all out.
That's pretty neat.
Then it goes 75 years into the future. And in 75 years in the future, the actors came out wearing masks and chanting. And the chant was da 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 da. And what has happened is we always talk about how ritual comes from theater and theater comes from ritual. Everybody had the same big questions. How did we get here? What are our purpose? We start performing for one another for entertainment. The performances become cognified, and all of a sudden those performances become religion. Well, now here we are 75 years in the future, and The Simpsons have become a religion. And people are communicating through it. And the reason it's called Mr. Burns, and I thought this was the wonderful thought of the evolution of it, they're still doing the episode where Bart confronts Sideshow Bob and they battle. But Sideshow Bob has been replaced by Mr. Burns. Everything else is the same, but now it's Mr. Burns. And the reason is this. 75 years ago, it was the nuclear plants that were melting down that were the greatest danger to humanity. And so now 75 years in the future, Mr. Burns is the key in the show as the villain instead of Sideshow Bob, because he is what people actually fear in the future, was the annihilation through nuclear plants. And so the episodes all reflect man's fears over the 75 years of rebuilding. And so they incorporate all these little things that were occurring in the past, and they wrap it into The Simpsons. And so people come out and perform in masks and big blue wigs and do these ceremonies, and and cowabunga becomes like a term of endearment. And it was a very ambitious show.
So what was the name of this again?
Mr. Burns,
Mr. Burns.
a post-electric play.
Okay.
It just closed this weekend, but it starts off, like I said, it's people sitting around a barrel which has a fire going in it telling stories. These stories evolve into small performances, and then these small performances evolve one step further into a religion, into a faith.
That's pretty neat. I want to introduce our guest tonight, Michael Williams, who is the theater director at a local college. We do the podcast, and he's already told some very interesting stories so far, and that's his background. He's a theater, what do you call it?
He's a clown.
Clown. Oh, he's a professional clown, too.
I would probably say that most of my theater is through clown.
Okay. So you actually went to clown college, correct?
I studied at the Del Arte School of Physical Theater, and I concentrated in clown.
That's amazing. And where was this theater school located?
This was Northern California.
Okay.
And I also studied in South Paris, Maine, at the Celebration Barn, which
Wow.
used to be a school for mime. And I studied clown and pantomime there before heading out west.
That's amazing. Yeah, you lived a lot of places.
Yeah, 2 continents and probably maybe 10 states.
Okay, so where were you born originally?
I'm originally from New Orleans, actually.
New Orleans, okay.
I am from Orleans Parish.
Okay.
And actually, I held residency there when I wasn't in the country, and was a resident all the way up until Katrina.
All right. Yeah, that's if I had to pick one place where I pick the favorite person comes from, it'd be New Orleans. I love New Orleans. It's a cool place.
I do miss it.
Yeah.
I won't lie. There are times I never thought I would.
Yeah.
I think when you come from there, you're
Yeah,
kind
you
of
probably
like
burned out on it.
Well, I like to tell people there's only so many times someone pissing in your lawn at Mardi Gras doesn't really get to you.
Yeah, I bet you the tourists will get on you.
And so, and that's what happens when you come from a tourist-packed town. But
Yeah.
when I look back on it, the idea that everything was walkable to, everything had public transportation to it, and growing up there, it was cheap. After
Yeah.
Katrina, things really went up. But
So do you miss it because you view New Orleans as being something close to your heart, or because you now are in the butthole of Alabama?
well, I don't think of it as a butthole as much as an armpit at times. It may smell at times, but there's not much shit I have to deal with.
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
more bureaucracy than
Okay.
anything.
So
Okay.
is Tim's mic on?
I think so.
Okay, well I'm gonna just go ahead and say it to the listeners. Tim is late.
Yeah.
Boo, Tim.
Boo.
If Tim was any more late, he'd be having a child.
But in retrospect, it usually takes us a long time to set our crap up.
I know.
So,
I underestimated Kevin's ability to get everything set up.
right. So, in retrospect, we're just getting good at setting up our equipment. So,
We're getting lucky.
lucky, is that it?
I did bring gifts though.
All right.
Adam, would you like a gift?
A beer?
Yeah.
I can't drink right now because of my poison medicine.
What?
That's what I have around my eye.
Hey, man, sometimes medicine enhances it a lot.
Is that why you had to shave your head?
Yeah, I got the poison in my hair.
You're not in a cult or anything, are you?
No.
Okay.
Nobody did squat in poison ivy once.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, hand me a beer. What could it hurt?
Just drink it.
You know how to drive home, do you?
I have to walk.
Okay, you'll be.
Next-
This'll be
We
easy.
can carry you.
Yeah, speaking of New Orleans, everything being walkable. close
Yeah, that is
by,
nice.
I'm very excited to be moving to the outskirts of Portland because I'm
Sounds
gonna
pretty
have
neat.
a bicycle and I'll be able to get wherever I need to go.
That is cool.
Well, also the fact that Portland's built for bicycles, you're gonna have a lot more biking lanes. It's the entire West Coast, I'd say, is much more into how should we say, more active lifestyle living.
So you're suggesting that we're not active?
Yeah, I think there's a very obvious undertone to that statement.
We have football, sir.
I stand by my
Yes.
statement.
So, you're familiar with the play Macbeth?
Yes, I am. It's a play about laundry.
Laundry.
Are you
Laundry.
serious?
Yep.
Doesn't he, isn't there some mother-son action in that
No.
story? No?
Not at all.
Are you hoping? You sounded like you were wishful thinking.
I really was hoping that's where this conversation was. No, I'm kidding.
No, so Kevin Costner's character in The Postman misquotes Macbeth a couple times, and it becomes like a main part of the movie where they say, "I'll die like without a harness on my back, with no harness on my back." But the line from Macbeth is direct opposite. I'll die with a harness on my back. It means like stand and fight.
Well, remember how I just talked about in Mr. Burns that we change things to adapt them to our needs.
Right, that Tim missed. It was a really great story.
How long have you guys been going?
We're not going to
What day is it?
Let's see.
We've been going for 75 years.
we've been going
It's a
for
podcast.
13 minutes, but he was telling us about a play.
Don't tell him.
Okay.
He should
Yeah,
have
I'll
came on
just-
time.
I'll make my comments without any prior knowledge.
All right.
Sounded a lot more
I'd
dumb that
always-
way.
that's
You
what
could run for office.
that's the way I do Facebook posts. I don't read the article. I just
Just
comment.
comment on what it looks like.
Exactly. I just make a wild guess.
So
but
I wanna customize my new smartphone. I'm thinking about taking some of my nail polish and painting the back of it.
Wait,
What do you
what
guys?
nail polish?
What do you mean?
Why do you have nail polish?
Because I ride a bicycle.
Those two things have nothing to do with each other. Are you
Don't you
speaking
know-
in code again, Adam?
No, nail polish is hands down the best rust preventer of
Is
any
it?
scratch on a bicycle.
I didn't know that.
Ah.
And they're in so many different colors, and you only need a little bit of it. So
It's like paint.
yeah, don't buy a big thing of paint. Just buy a little thing of nail
nail
polish
polish.
in the exact color.
Okay.
Why? What'd you think?
Brilliant.
What'd you think was going on?
I had no idea.
It could be one of two things, and you had no idea. Either I'm putting on nail polish on my hands, or
Well, that's what I assumed.
We assumed.
Really, only one.
Could have been
one
the toes.
Yeah, could have been the toes.
that's true. I consider my toes and my fingers to be the same thing because they're the exact same length.
And
Most people don't know that because I never take my shoes off. You're welcome.
well, it's kind of like
That's weird.
when people ask about John Hancock's signature. I always have to correct them and say, no, he was actually about 23 feet tall. That's just his normal signing.
That's pretty good.
It's not bigger than everybody else. It's just
Right.
proportional.
But
How many other post-apocalyptic movies did Kevin Costner do?
And the Waterworld.
Waterworld, yeah.
I started thinking about that.
And the
I saw
Postman.
I saw something somewhere that said, what was it? I forgot how many years. 10,000 years, everything almost will be underwater. So maybe that's what will happen eventually.
You think you're going to have to wait that long?
Well, hopefully I'll be gone by then.
Well, people in that movie started growing gills.
They did.
Yeah, they evolved.
People or just Kevin Costner?
Maybe it was
He
just
was like the
Kevin Costner.
one.
Well, the thing is, Costner was the one that they used as an example, but not everything evolves at the same time.
Oh.
So some people had them,
And
some
so
people
as
didn't.
he evolves and interbreeding, occurs, you'll have further evolution.
He'll
Brush
pass
up on your
his-
Darwin.
Yeah, go get it, Kevin Costner. We gotta all have gills in the
We
future.
gotta spread the gills, man.
Hey,
Gotta
man.
get your gills.
Hey, the last Oscar winner, Shape of Water.
I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen that one either. Let's see. The last movie that I saw that won an Oscar. That's tough.
Was at a midnight theater with trench coats.
Yeah. The old days.
Yeah, that's right.
But, well, I'll tell you something I'd like to talk about a little bit if you want to, Michael.
I'd rather not.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You sound like you had an interesting life. You're right, sort of summarizing your life story and the things you've done.
Just tell us everything
Or
that's
is that
happened in
too
your
much?
life.
Should I
Start from the
start with my
beginning.
social security number and
Yes.
with my
We need-
credit card number?
Our
Yes.
goal is
Just
to get
just so
you
be
fired.
factual. But you said
We have the same goals.
But I just assumed you came directly from New Orleans. I didn't realize you've been to a lot of different other places.
No. I actually after Katrina hit.
Yeah. So you were located in New Orleans when Katrina hit, or?
Well, that's always been my home address, regardless of
Okay.
where I was.
Yeah, I
Things
guess
would
if you're in
arrive.
School and theater and stuff.
And so, no, I went to school in North Carolina and then up to Maine and then headed out west. And, didn't finish my training until I was, much further along back in Louisiana. But in between,
Tim,
time
this is
in
clown training.
Yeah.
I will inform you on that.
He was trained as a professional clown.
most people regard it as theatrical clown
Theatrical.
work.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I
What's
don't
the
know what I'm talking
difference?
about.
Because
Don't say it like that. You're insulting me. What's the difference?
What's Steve-O?
All clowns are the same. What are you talking about?
oh man, so we could put Tiger Woods on a football helmet, put him out there, and it's all the
It's
same,
all
right?
the same. Just put some makeup and a red nose on him, and he's good to go.
I bet he has
I'm
some
mixing
nail
my
polish.
metaphors.
Mixing your metaphor or your drinks.
Both.
That seems to be what's really
That's the name of
causing
my
it.
drink.
And then
Mixed metaphor.
time in Italy, and then
Okay,
and then significant time in the Czech Republic, and then and a lot of time up in New England, up
Okay.
in the Northeast, from the Berkshires and Providence, and
That's interesting.
but my road that took me here, we storm hits, we end up in Lafayette. Really like Lafayette. From there to
Wait a minute. Gotta clarify.
Lafayette, not Lafayette.
Okay.
Here we
Not
call our
Lafayette, Louisiana.
Lafayette.
Yeah, they're Lafayette, not Lafayette, Indiana, not Lafayette, California.
Not Lafayette, Alabama.
So
I-
Michael and
That's pronounced
Miranda
Lafayette in this part of the country.
I corrected people like my first year here.
I did too.
constantly
That's why I was so confused. Like, what are they saying?
And then after a couple of years, it just gets to a
Gave
point
up.
where you're like, there's no way I can turn the tide here.
No, it's completely overwhelming.
Miranda Lambert sings that in a song, but she says it correctly. And-
Lafayette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've never heard anybody in an interview like bring it up to her. but I know like majority of her listeners are thinking, like, that's Lafayette.
That's Lafayette.
No, it's kind of like when you hear Fayetteville, you know,
Right.
Fayette,
Lafayette.
you know,
Lafayette.
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 You know, I
So
just-
anyway, you were in Lafayette, Louisiana.
then from there to Ruston, and Ruston, I know, you know, we like to always make fun of Central Alabama and stuff, but North
Ruston.
North
Yes, we do.
North Louisiana,
North Louisiana. Okay.
and North Louisiana, as in, you know, you go further north, you're in Arkansas,
Right.
and
We have some listeners in Arkansas. Speaking of that, I haven't mentioned the podcast yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
well,
guys. hope you're
I
in the
agree
nice
for them
part.
because I'd say Southwest Arkansas and North Louisiana are just some of the most poverty-stricken areas. You know, lowest income, and in Arkansas, it's really one of the things that catches my attention because you got everything from like, you know, Tyson Foods, Bow Brothers Trucking, the home base of Walmart, and yet, you know, the average family there still makes under probably $30,000 a year.
Wait, that's poverty?
Yeah, I know.
Oh no.
Oh, trust
Adam
me.
would swim in that kind of money.
Yes, he would Scrooge McDuck it.
Yes, he would.
But in Ruston, we got 3 job offers. One here. We got an offer for Dothan, Alabama. And if anybody's been to Dothan, you know why we're not in Dothan.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Hong Kong.
Japan? I mean, Asia?
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong is a
China.
country into itself.
Not Hong Kong, Texas.
I was just clarifying.
Yeah.
The country.
I just want to make sure that the mortal enemy of the Chinese and Japanese weren't getting mixed up with each
Yeah,
other.
that's right. We don't want to start any kind of international squabbles here.
And so Hong Kong was a good offer. It would have been less work, but the same pay, basically.
Yeah.
Would you have been going to teach at SCAD?
No, but they do have that SCAD Hong Kong program.
Because that was 2010, I think, when they first started.
2009.
Kevin, that's Savannah College of Art and Design.
Okay.
SCAD.
Okay,
And,
thank you. I didn't know that.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said the acronym. But yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
not in Hong Kong.
You know what that?
No,
They-
they do. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
You know what
opened
the
up a
mascot
branch.
for SCAD is?
No.
We're still waiting.
The bees. The SCAD bees.
The bee's knees.
Now, is there an athletic team to actually use for any
Yes,
of it?
I know this because when I was in high school, they hosted our state tournament. We played our basketball state tournament in their basketball place, arena, coliseum, gym.
I believe everything they have is intramural, though.
Probably.
You know, they don't actually, SCAD doesn't pack up one weekend and say, let's go play over at this
There's no
HBCU.
intercollegiate athletics.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I mean,
SCAD.
they have like speed painting. I don't know.
The guy,
Whatever.
the guy with the
Artistic
camera wins again.
Artistic contests. But this Hong Kong is not SCAD.
No, it was actually, I wouldn't be working for an American company in Hong Kong. I'd have actually been working for a foreign company. And I had
I'm super glad you ended up in Alabama, but
well, the
But
crux
why?
of it was that if
I was his student his first year when he arrived.
Oh, so okay.
and if
so
we
I
had if I had ended up in Hong Kong, the problem was even though the job could work out my visa, the pets.
Oh,
And even though if you come from another Commonwealth country, or if you came from another former British colony, a lot of times they'll let you come in with a pet, since Hong Kong was a British colony. But we don't really count as a former colony, since they didn't exactly say, "Here, have your independence." We
That's
just
true.
they didn't say that?
nope, not in any way, shape, or form.
We
And-
won it with guts and blood.
And time, a lot of time.
America.
People think it just happened real quick. There's
There's a
a lot of time
25,
leading up to
1812 was when it finally started to come to an end.
There was 100 years of just like, okay, just be there, no real real stuff.
No more kings, as Schoolhouse Rock said.
Oh, that Jack Black.
Yeah.
Wow,
I
just
like-
come out and say it. too.
I like that. I like that.
School of Rock.
I know, that's two different things.
Yeah, that was my joke.
It was a good
you
joke.
Dummy.
It was funny.
And so, originally from New Orleans, a lot of places in between,
That's neat.
and then really the job offers came in. We sat, evaluated, and this was the one that was going to give me the most control to try and make a program in my image.
That's what I was thinking. I mean,
Yeah.
since you're the main dude and it's a small school, you can sort of run it the way you want to.
If the thing is that that's also the
Those
Achilles.
power-hungry theater guys, I tell you
Well,
what.
it's the Achilles heel of the program also.
Is it?
I always warn the students that their greatest deficit when they leave here is that it's monopedagogy. They only know what I know and the things I can pull from, when most small theater departments are 5 people.
Yeah.
And if I were in a 5-person department, I would be what's called a movement teacher or a physical theater teacher. And you look at like Auburn, I think their theater department's 14 people.
Gotcha.
And then you go look at Florida State, and it's like, they got like a 30-person department. And
Well, speaking of clowns, Florida State has
the Florida State Flying High Circus.
yes, the big clown college.
Yeah.
Not exactly.
That's what I know.
Well, that says even more.
It's not very much.
Adam, go get one of your shovels. We're going to need help for Tim.
All right.
Dig me out of this hole.
And so, Florida State has the Flying High Circus, which is a circus skills program. It's the only one state-sponsored by a college in the U.S.
That's neat. I didn't know
And
that.
so their students can actually take classes in everything from trapeze, Spanish web, pike, Chinese poles. They have some juggling instructors. They don't have clown, actually. Clown is actually not there, which is why I had to point that out. It's a circus skill program, not a clown program. Those are in different schools.
Oh,
See, you learn something new every day.
You were probably going to be a stick in the mud about this as well. I went to a house party while I was in Hawaii. No, different house party.
Oh, not the furry party?
Not the furry party.
Oh, okay.
They called it the circus,
Okay.
but it was primarily for acro yoga, like training sessions. But there were people juggling.
Did you meet a Doug Pouliot?
No.
All right, he's an acrosage guy
Okay.
that does a lot of those tour sort of
But
things.
it was so funny because there was juggling and people playing music and a lot of acro yoga. So you get really hot doing acro yoga. So everybody's like half naked, and people that didn't know.
So it's the
they
opposite of a furry party.
Right. They just heard music. It was like, oh, I'm gonna go check out this house party, and they walked in, and I was standing in the living room, and this guy walks in, and he brought his own beer. He looks like down into the other room, and he says, "What is going on? Why is everybody working out?"
And you said they're stretching for the orgy.
It's exactly what it looks like, sir.
No, I didn't tell him anything. I just put my arm around him.
That's even better. Make sure you
Alright.
smile.
Did you tell John Wilbur?
Yeah.
Oh, so John Wilbur said like absolutely no to this party and the furry party.
did?
He was very against like
Oh.
going out of his comfort zone.
Well, here's something I thought I'd mention since we're talking about John Wilbur. I set up a Google Voice account.
Oh no.
So, if you call, you can send a voicemail or send a text to this number and we'll play it on the podcast. 256-401-7140.
That's 256-401 some other number. because I'm not
71
looking at.
40. And I was really
7140.
impressed with you that
I got
man.
the first 6.
I was very impressed.
This
I
is
was
when
listening.
now you've got a number to do all your prank calls and death
Exactly.
threats.
So until
Yeah.
anybody actually listens to the show, we can just call each other. And
That's right. We can do practice our voice impressions.
I would say this is not going to
Wait,
end well.
let me do my Carl Castle.
Probably not.
That was it. He died last week,
Oh,
guys.
okay.
Who?
Oh,
Who is this?
Carl Castle,
I don't know who that
NPR.
is.
oh, NPR. Okay, yeah.
Radio guy.
Radio.
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 Loser.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out. But you're welcome to call, and I'll announce that in the intro and the outro too. So.
Nice. So that's like the phone version of the bowl.
Yes, I guess you could do that. You could send suggestions by that number.
Yeah.
And it's just I listened to a podcast called yeah, that one too. But conspiracy theories and
And the other one is
And these guys have a phone call. These folks just call in and talk about crazy stuff.
When you say
Conspiracy
conspiracy,
theories,
Coast to
yeah.
Coast died last week too.
Who's?
Oh yeah, I heard it. That's bad. I listen to that guy. I listen to a lot of guys inspired by that guy. I never listened to his show.
Is that Harvey
Art
Weinstein?
Bale.
Art Bale.
Yeah, he was a
Coast to Coast?
It was a
to
call-in show about aliens.
It was
and-
the radio program that started around 1 a.m. and it went to 5 a.m. And if you think that, some of our conversations might seem a little weird, this guy lived it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. From in those hours, you
Yeah,
tapping
1
into
a.m. to
weirdos.
5 a.m., you're getting the people who are just as paranoid as you.
Yep. And they're probably wasted on top of it.
Yeah. I listened to a podcast called The Unexplained with Howard Hughes. Well, not the actual Howard Hughes. That happens to be his name, from England. And he's always referencing
Coast to Coast.
Coast to Coast. That's one of his favorites. And that coast actually inspired the type of show he does now.
Well, Coast to Coast is really your, let's talk about Area 51. Freemasons have invaded the government. The Illuminati is controlling the Treasury.
I know people that think that way.
Well, the thing is that
Hi.
think this
I'm
way.
not looking at anybody at this table.
Now, admit it, you put him in striped pajamas with that?
Oh yeah.
You
just
see
got
it,
a-
don't you?
got
Yeah,
a new
with the
haircut.
new haircut.
you look
and the,
crazy as hell. That
And-
you
hair.
do, man. You look
And-
jacked up.
And the weight.
What?
My body size.
I'm not telling you where I was.
No, I got my hair cut real short, and then I have poison around one of my eyes.
So what happened to your face?
He was listening
Cut
to Every
myself
Rose.
shaving. What happened?
You heard him?
Heavy Rose. I get it. Give me a second.
What?
Heavy Rose.
What's that?
I don't know that one either.
It's a song by Poison.
Yeah.
Oh, Every Rose. I
He
didn't realize.
said, I've got
As
poison
it's
under my
thorn.
eye.
Yeah.
He's got
Poison.
Every rose has its thorn.
Yeah. They got
Okay.
poison thorn.
Yep. Sure.
No, I want to know what happened to your face.
I don't know.
Oh, that sounds like a genetics issue, and,
Right?
and
Like,
it's really
why do you
screwed
look
up.
like that, Adam?
I can't explain myself. I just know that I have like poison ivy around my eye and on most of my upper body. But it could be worse, according to a previous story we heard.
Yes.
Did you get a shot for it? Or?
No, I've tried getting shots because I get this every year.
Yeah.
Like I even try like really diligently to stay out of.
Yeah, really, it's a
Poison.
cortisone shot you'd need
Yeah.
to take down some of the defenses so it wouldn't be fighting you as much.
But every shot that I've ever gotten hasn't really done the work. So I don't want to like spend the money and they make me feel like crap after
Yeah.
I get a shot. So I'll just deal with it and take like over the counter stuff.
Just do like the average American, go to the emergency room and don't pay the bill.
The average American does that.
You didn't know that? That's why healthcare works in America.
Write your name on your chest and collapse in front of an emergency room like
Yeah.
you got dropped off there. And
Yeah.
that way when you come through, you're like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, just act dumb.
I mean, this is uncomfortable, but I don't think it's emergency room worthy. Especially not like skipping out on the bill worthy.
I don't know. You've seen some emergency room bills?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I definitely don't want to go if it's going to be a high bill. I feel an obligation to pay debts, and I just try not to.
Have you ever
accumulate.
thought about being an IRS auditor?
That's good.
You should feel the same way I do.
I get into poison ivy too. It's all around my house. So anytime I have to cut the grass or work in the yard or do anything,
You have the kids do it.
I have to like as soon as I'm done, I first of all, it doesn't matter if it's 100 degrees outside. I'm dressed from head to toe, long sleeves,
Yeah.
long pants.
Yeah, I burn my
gloves.
clothes
Yeah, I
afterwards.
burn my
Like, it
yes.
just-
You just can't.
While wearing them.
And then you just gotta bathe right after you're done. If I don't do that, then I will be covered from head to toe.
I'm very sensitive to it too. I used to always keep something called, it used to be called ruler gel. Now I think it's called Band-Aid something. And it's a clear ointment. And because I'm so sensitive to it, I get it, starts spreading like crazy.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
We got to switch it with Bengay. See the reaction.
That's right.
No, this is not the worst that I've ever had it. So I've never had it around my eye, and that's kind of like annoying because it's constantly.
You've never taken a crap in it either.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You've never had it where the sun don't shine.
Right.
I have,
Oh.
but not real bad. Just a little tickle, which was enough to scare.
Was it your
Brad.
first date?
Oh, what?
So Bill's not here.
No.
Yay! Did I say that?
Yeah, you can say that.
I was hoping we would have a microphone for Bill.
Yeah. I've got one. We can get ready real quick.
No,
No?
because the last time we tried to do stuff, I mean, every time we try to do something new, like we either don't record or switch.
Yeah,
it
we
up.
don't want to mess with. We're going good now. We don't want to mess
everything's
with.
working pretty good
Yeah,
now.
Yeah, I do think Bill's.
And we don't want like a dumbass in front of our guest.
Yeah.
Too late.
Screw that up.
You set yourself up for that one, Kevin.
So what do we want to say about Bill now that he's not here?
Okay. Well, he was doing his
That
fatherly
there's something
duties.
good about everybody.
Well, we got to speak of the unpresent.
Yeah.
Like Roger Ailes is dead.
Roger Ailes.
Yeah. So there's something good about everybody.
Apparently, you're not a big fan.
So what did he do? Remind me a little bit. I think I saw the.
Oh, Roger Ailes. He was the president for Fox News.
Oh, okay. That's what it was. Yeah.
That explains it.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
his
he's
name.
the
I just
one that
couldn't
they
think
had
what it was.
to cut loose over the Gretchen Carlson and several
yeah.
other,
Yeah, I know what you're
where
talking about
he would employ the women, and then after a few years of employment, he would bring them in the office and
now. Yeah.
talk to them about how he's done so much for them and he needs something in return.
Yeah. That works really good nowadays. I tell you. It's
Yeah.
time for that.
That's
You're
a real
very
popular
realistic
tactic.
man, Michael.
Yeah.
You.
Well, I hope so. I do live in this dimension.
Sometimes I feel like I can't like continue the conversation with you because you drop something like that on me, and I don't know how to react. And you would think after.
I thought the Carl Castle was pretty good, but then everybody just stared at me. So,
Yeah, I've never heard of that guy.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're sort of slow.
like I said, it says more about you.
That's right. It's not a commentary on you.
And one thing I like about Michael is I've noticed folks who've lived in different places seem to have the type of attitude I like. You know, there's much more the word open-minded
And
or
it's funny you say that
peculiar.
because you can go pretty much anywhere else and you find a group of people that have been other places.
yeah.
But you don't find that here in our town.
Well, we're 20 miles from the nearest interstate either way, and I think that sort of helps isolate
Between nothing and nowhere.
us.
That's
Exactly.
exactly right.
Do you think that's the sole cause though? Because I think it's a lot of.
Well, I don't think we're unique in that regard. Like, I think a lot of
Right.
rural places.
One of the biggest issues I've had over these years is getting guest artists. And one of the problems getting guest artists is you're constantly trying to get them when they're going from A to B.
All right.
Michael's
So-
a rapper.
And so
Drop a beat for it.
It's a freestyle.
And so, no, the issue is that, you contact a person because they finished up a show, let's say in, let's say Memphis, and they're going to be headed towards Atlanta, and you're like, hey, I'm only about an hour and a half out of Atlanta. Can you come down here and, work with my guys? And they start looking at maps, and there's no like little veering. It's like you actually have to go here to get here.
On purpose.
Yeah,
You
they're-
have to really try to get here.
And so the guest artists we've been able to pull in over the years are people who we've actually had to look for and say, hey, do you have time at this time? Because I know this is not veering off of a trip. This has to be planned into part of the trip. And so that's one of our great disadvantages of where we are. Where, I always like to say we're about an hour and a half from almost anything you'd want. The problem is, you're an hour and a half from anything you want.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an hour and a half away from everything you
But the
need.
advantage is you're 5 hours away from the mountains, the beach, and a couple of different beach areas.
I mean,
Yeah, but
I'm comparing it to Hawaii that I just came from.
And
30
that's a
minutes
shit.
from
That's
everything.
a shithole. Is trying to say.
Yeah, but the thing is, like,
Let's live with that shithole.
you go up to Humboldt County in California, and like you look one direction, you have snow-topped mountains. You look the other direction, you got the ocean, and
Yeah.
you're less than 20 minutes from both.
Yeah, and I guess like 5 hours wouldn't be that bad for most people, but
See,
Yeah.
When you only have a bike, that's
Yeah,
Well-
yeah. If you don't like driving,
I do have a car.
if you do a lot of drugs
that
and get lost
I-
easy.
No, I hate driving. Like I want to drive 30 minutes and then take a break, or already be where I'm going.
Yeah, and you actually, and here's another tip about I find interesting about you driving. Personally, I try to keep it around 50 when I drive, and this guy actually drives slower than I do. He tries to keep it around 45.
Wait, you drive 50 miles an hour?
Well, that way I can listen to podcasts and relax.
Yeah, and I drive around that speed.
And he's doing it in the left lane just for you,
I
Tim.
guarantee you.
Because
Exactly.
On a 2-lane highway
I
in
can
rural
leave
Alabama.
and somebody's trying to pass me. Just see how pissed off they get.
I used to play
His
this
dream
game.
is to drive
You're
a
the guy I
tractor in
always
the
end up
road.
behind, Kevin. It's Kevin.
I used to play this game when I was going to school, and I would see how many cars I could get stacked behind me, because it was this windy 2-lane road that nobody could pass me, and I would go like 20 to 40 mile an hour.
You're
That
an
was my
asshole.
range.
That's
No, because I would go so freaking early to class that anybody that was going there too, and there was nothing else in that town. Sorry, Michael. I know that's where you teach.
there is nothing in that town.
Yeah. So I got up to like 8. That was my high score.
8 cars behind
Yeah.
you between here and Wadley.
Yeah.
Wow,
And there
that's-
would be
that's
so
pretty
many
good.
people that I would have class with, and they'd flip me off. And
Did they realize who you were? And they just
oh
got
yeah,
there
they
like,
knew who I was. They knew my vehicle, everything. They're just like, oh no, I'm stuck behind this dude.
Well,
again."
picture that. You know I-285 in Atlanta, the circle.
the circle, yeah.
There was, when I was living there 10, 15 years ago, there was a group of friends that got together, and it's like 6 or 7, it's like, I think it's 5 or 6 lanes most of the way around the city. And they all got in their cars, 5 of them or 6 of them, however many lanes there are, and decided to go, you know,
Shoulder to
side by
shoulder.
side, shoulder to shoulder, down the interstate, 55 miles an hour,
That's
and
awesome.
block everyone off. And it was like, people were standing, they announced the stunt so people could see it happen and watch it as it comes by on their exit or whatever. And so people were standing on bridges, and you could see just no cars. You could see the wave coming like there was nothing in front of it. And just 55, because everybody, the speed limit then was 55. And so it was an experiment to actually make people drive the speed limit.
So it wasn't as crazy as it sounds when the speed limit was 55.
No, it was-
okay.
But
It was
this is crazy because people do 80 on there like it's nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's
Well, it's
you
kind
had
of like
some very angry
the
people behind
the
it.
bike gatherings, and I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
Adam
yeah.
knows what I'm talking about. Where to make
Nope.
people aware that the road is not just for motor vehicles. Cyclists will gather in groups and cycle in the middle of the road, and it'll cause major traffic
Oh, yeah.
issues throughout metropolitan areas. And some states have tried to pass laws banning it, saying bicycles can't impede traffic, but the legal word impede leaves a lot of room for discussion because the bicycle by law is supposed to be in the road.
Right. You don't ride on the sidewalk.
Yeah, you'll get a ticket in this town for riding on the sidewalk.
They'll think you got a DUI.
I only ride on the sidewalk in this town.
I don't
because
blame
even
you.
though I know it's illegal.
Well, I think they only enforce it in the downtown area.
Well, even there, like.
Well, that's in
I-
the old days probably. Cause
You'll
there's
get run
no-
over, man.
I know, like it's worth whatever fine that I will eventually have to pay.
For your life.
Right, like I will die because
I want to live and pay a fine
because
than be
what
dead.
people are interested in their like jacked up vehicle is how it sounds to passersby.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
So they're gonna rev it up and squash me with their giant tires. I'm not having that.
My favorite thing to do is when I hear them rev up the vehicle to make a lot of noises, I ignore it completely and look the other way, so it really pisses them off more.
Yeah.
We had his name was Lucas Cox, and he was one of the most brilliant clowns I ever worked with. Just one of those guys who could walk in, do something so surreal. While I was living overseas, he was from New Mexico. He was living in New Orleans, and this is New Orleans' idea of a bike lane is they put down a line that everybody parks in. It's not really a bike lane in any way, shape, or form, but that way they can claim federal dollars that they're working on alternative modes of transportation and everything. He was on Magazine Street. I was overseas when I found out about it, and as he was riding down Magazine, he got doored. And doored, of course, is when a door opens on a cyclist, but he was doored not where the door opens and he collides in it. The door opened at the same time he was in front of it, so he was hit from the side. Knocked him under a flatbed 18-wheeler.
Yikes.
Gone.
No kidding.
Oh, man.
You know, and the thing is, he was 34, and he was just phenomenal. He worked on Spanish Web. He did performances. He had relocated to New Orleans because it fit what he was trying to do, and he wanted to live in a place that really had that vibe that with what he wanted to do. And within 5 years of him being there, poof. And it happens all the time. In fact, they in New Orleans today, when a cyclist is killed, they hook the ghost bike to the location, and
Which
it's
is a bicycle that's painted all white, and then they'll chain it to the location where the person was killed.
Yeah, you see those all the time on the highway, yeah.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
side of the highway.
well, side of the highway. You usually get people putting up crosses or other religious
Yeah,
symbols.
but
or
I've
things.
seen the bikes too, yeah.
Yeah, and the bikes, and the thing is that most of the accidents that occur, the cyclists had not done anything wrong. People always jump up and say cyclists running signs, running this, running that, but most of the time cars pull into them. People open doors. We claim to be, we're making things better, but until you go out west and see that a biking lane, or you've been to Amsterdam, Adam, and Denmark, I believe, and the bike lanes there are about the size of a car lane.
Yeah, and they're elevated, especially when it crosses over traffic. It like you go up a ramp and then you're sitting kind of above the traffic, so that there's no possible way that a vehicle can get to you if they're paying any kind of attention.
And if they do say they didn't see you because of that elevation, you're more than visible.
Right, you're in the clear.
Yeah, it's like in the Czech Republic, pedestrians in a crosswalk are always in the right. The problem is cars will whiz by and they'll strike people all the time. And a buddy of mine, William Hollister, took a step once, and I grabbed his collar, pulled him back, and he was like, "I'm in the right." And I was like, "Well, we'll make sure the stone says that."
Right, like
Yeah.
just because you're right doesn't mean you're going to survive.
Being right doesn't mean that car gives a damn.
Yeah.
That's right.
A lot of folks get in the car and it's like they just sort of get into a frame of mind like
Well,
they're just.
the car becomes when they started extending castle laws to cars is because of the idea that when you're in your car, you're in your space, you're going to do your thing.
Right.
And there's a lot of people I've met in the state of Alabama who do not want bikes on the road, and they argue that bikes don't pay, cyclists don't pay as much taxes. What are they doing on the road? And it's kind of like, don't pay as much taxes, huh? Last time I checked, there was no deduction that's sat there saying, "Do you bike to work?"
Right. Yep.
And there's other cities like Portland. When you buy a new bicycle, they even include a relative tax to pay for the bike lane portion of the road.
Well, I'm going to play the redneck advocate though, right here, because
All right.
the cars do pay more taxes because they have to pay for license plates, and you have to have a license. You don't need a license plate. You don't need a license to ride a bike. You don't need those things that you pay money for to have to drive a car.
Okay, redneck advocate, you are.
Am I right or am I wrong?
That is because to drive a car is a privilege in this country. Riding a bicycle
appreciate that
is not a
you're
privilege.
Advocating
What is it?
for everyone to be into poverty.
The redneck advocate?
Yeah, you need to have other options.
It's not that. It's the redneck advocate is advocating because the day he becomes rich, he doesn't want to have to pay those taxes. So that one day that he looks forward to that will never come is the day he's preparing for. It's like the redneck advocate who fills his closet up with firearms because one day they're going to come for his firearms. And it's kind of like, one, they're not coming for your firearms, and two, laser-guided missile. Protect your closet all you can.
That's right. Well, it's like the Y2K people that stocked up on gasoline,
They do know gas goes bad.
Right.
If you ever watch The Walking Dead, it never goes bad.
Well, it's kind of like film and
It pisses me off
television.
about that movie. I mean, or TV show. It never goes bad.
Bullet magazines and films and movies. I mean, they're almost infinite.
That's
You
true.
know, I can fire off
That's a
forever.
good point. They're infinite in that series, and you'd
That's
think.
one
yeah.
thing I thought when I was watching The Postman. I was like, they're using a lot of ammo for it to be the end of the,
The
world.
apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing about Mr. Burns is that the only electricity they could produce was by hooking cables to an exercise bike, and somebody would pedal backstage
Nice.
in order to create the lighting that they needed for their shows.
So I will still be able to cycle even on a stationary bike in the future if it all goes bad.
And
That's what you're
and to answer what is
promising me.
cycling, well, cycling's not a privilege. Otherwise, you know, you wouldn't give a bicycle to your 5 or 6-year-old. Now, if you're willing to give your 5 or 6-year-old your car keys, I'm willing. I'm willing. I'm willing.
I'm a
to,
redneck advocate, man. I'd give my kid just let them ride around.
in a 4-wheel
They
drive.
can ride around the trailer park all they want to.
Yeah, you know, so what your health care is down to is a pair of pliers and some alcohol.
Yeah, that's all you need, really. Some duct tape.
You don't need that damn free health care in this country.
That's right. Nothing's free, Kevin.
That's right. Oh man.
So back to Mr. Burns. You know, they kind of cover that in Planet of the Apes, where all the electricity goes down, but they don't talk about the nuclear power plants.
Well, the thing
going
is that nuclear power plants, still require electricity for their cooling. And once you lose the cooling mechanism, a nuclear power plant begins to overheat. And this is basically what is causing meltdowns. And so in Chernobyl, the coolant had not been monitored correctly. And by the time they realized things were out of control, radiation was everywhere.
Well, that's what happened with the tsunami in Japan more recently. I mean, they had that nuclear power plant that was right there on the ocean. It got flooded out.
Well, the problem is anything in Japan is right there on the ocean.
That's right. It's an island.
Oh,
And Tokyo, at least,
Remember,
is well below sea level.
Especially the Hong Kong area of Japan.
remember, it's only an island if you look at it from the water.
What?
Jaws.
True.
Oh, blew my
Are you
mind.
saying pause?
Yes, pause. Roy Schneider, when they say, you know, funny, a cop that works on an island who hates water, and he's like, it's only an island if you look at it from the water. He's on dry land.
That's right. It's all about your perspective. Hey, I want to go back to something that you said.
Very
Is this about your?
I got a bone to pick here.
Is this about your giving everybody points over the beaver when the nutria is actually the largest of the rodents? Should we start
He's
there?
talking about the animal, the beaver. He's not using that term as a.
Who was thinking that?
Everyone who is listening to this right now was thinking when he said beaver.
I put nutria.
Mom,
I did not say
that
beaver.
Tim put you in
I
the same
guarantee you, a
category.
lot of people don't know what nutria is. They think you're talking about some kind of fake sugar or something.
Was it correct?
Beaver?
Nutria.
Yeah, nutria. Yeah. Nutria was the biggest beaver.
Yes.
And the beaver is the big, and that
Subcategory of beaver.
that by extension is the largest rodent. in North
Nutria are a swamp beaver, basically, that you find throughout Louisiana. And they get to the size where they can really screw you up.
Sounds vicious.
They actually have bounties on them, and once a year you can collect for pelts. Not because people are making coats or anything from them, but they get into the canals and they destroy a lot of the wetlands preservation attempts that we have.
Wow.
And so a lot of restaurants now in Louisiana have begun serving nutria to try and create a market for it. So, because one thing is nutria have no real natural enemies except alligators and
And the human.
the human. And so by trying to create a market for them with humans, it's to try and create an enemy to lower their populations. Nutria was the correct answer.
Nutria.
Can you use it in a sentence, please?
Yes.
So what's the bone you were going to pick? I'm
The
curious now.
nutria wiped his butt with poison ivy.
Oh. Take that, nutria.
That concludes part 1 of Michael Williams. Is anybody in here for May 3rd, 2018, episode 12, with Adam Baker, Kevin Traylor, Tim Altork, and Michael Williams. We'll have part 2 for you as a bonus episode for Friday. You can get in touch with Zenybody in here at zenybodyinhere@gmail.com. Facebook, Zenybody in here at Zenybody in here podcast. Webpage, zenybodyinhere.com. Send a voicemail or text 256-401-7140. And to support Zenybody in here, go to Patreon and look us up. Thanks for listening.